a lot in the kind of Trump stories. A lot of people losing their minds going, Donald Trump should have won the Nobel Peace Prize. I think the cut-off date for consideration was last January, so he was never going to win it anyway, just by the T's and C's of the Nobel Peace Prize people. Never going to happen. But notionally, or maybe next year, he might win it. I know Alex was saying that, you know, the Nobel Peace Prize people, they don't give stuff to people like Donald Trump. They give it to Barack Obama when he did naff all. And he wasn't even the president, by the way, at that point. Before he was the president, he won one for making a speech. Wouldn't it be great if there was a world with no weapons? I think John Lennon beat him to that some years before. He didn't win one. 0344 499 1000. Will Donald Trump turn out to be the greatest leader of modern times? We're kind of living in a world right now where a lot of sort of conventional things have kind of gone out of the window. If you look at the way our two-party system in this country has been really obliterated in the last, certainly in the last couple of years, and very much within the last 12 months. The general order of play, how stuff used to happen. There was a chronology or a protocol, a template, if you like. There were parameters in which things happened. And now it's all changed. You know, on paper, Donald Trump being the president it's a bit nuts, isn't it? You know, a lot of people would go, well, I mean, he's got a bit of an iffy backstory, and even if you don't believe all of the sort of allegations against him, whether they're financial or sexual, whatever they happen to be, there's going to be one or two in there that would go down as a misdemeanor. In any other world, would preclude you from I mean, the comment he made years ago on The Coach about grabbing that would preclude you from ever standing. Can you imagine that in this country? That if, you know, one of our leaders, one of our politicians was caught saying something. And I'm making no judgment on that, by the way, because that's not the point of this. The point is, we are living in kind of unconventional times, how things get done. So Donald Trump might not be everybody's cup of tea. And he might have, I think he's got a certain toxic magic to him, is the nearest I can get to kind of explaining the Trump thing. Because what is happening in Israel and Gaza, with the ceasefire, the deal has now been signed, it's all up and running, and away we go. It is peace in our time, kids. Will it last? We hope it will last. But I'm not absolutely sure it could have happened without Donald Trump. You see, this deal that was carved out was actually on the table about a year ago. It went under Biden's nose, it went under the Israelis, and they couldn't quite get it together. I think Netanyahu didn't want to see a peace deal while Joe Biden was in power. They pathologically hated each other. So there was a bit of that. Joe Biden didn't know what flipping day of the week it was. So the deal itself, nobody really believes Donald Trump sat up at night with a moleskin notepad and a quill, carving out how he thinks this should unfold. This was kind of all, it was done, it was ready to go. They just needed to, you know, dot the I's, cross the T's, get the whole thing sorted, and then sell it. Sell it and say it, and explain to the world what it meant to have it and the consequences of not going with it. And I just don't think a figure other than Donald Trump, and maybe at some point, you know, there'll be another figure who's similar. I don't think anybody could have done it other than Trump in that respect. So I am going to ask the question, should he have won the Nobel Peace Prize, even though we know that technically it would have to be next year that he would go in the list. See, thoughts on that? And the wider question, will he turn out to be the greatest leader of modern times? Now, depending on where you are on your politics will depend on how you view him. But just look at this objectively. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, he is the bloke in charge when this peace deal has been reached. You can't, if you're a Biden fan or a Kamala Harris fan, you wouldn't be diluting it, going, well, it's nothing really to do with Kamala, as people are saying about Trump. You know, he's the bloke in charge now. He's the man that's given all the press conferences. He's the man that's made all the phone calls. He's the guy that has said, look, get this done or it's curtains for you. And he said that, you know, pulled the rug from under Netanyahu a couple of times. He's made his points really clear. And the robust and frank way in which he's executed those comments and those words and those statements is something that I don't think anybody else could have done, genuinely could not have done. And that doesn't matter what you think of Donald Trump. Would you concur with that? And will Donald Trump turn out to be the greatest leader of modern times? 0344 499 1000. That is where you'll find us. Our phone lines are open. Of course, if he cracks Ukraine as well and does the double, then I think you'd have to, even the most critical Democrat would have to go, well, I'll take my hat off to him. He only went and he did the double. Donald did the double. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a word on this and the other big stories of the day. Oscar Reddrop is with us, former number 10 advisor to Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister. Afternoon to you, Oscar.
Afternoon, Ian.
Good to have you with us. Well, it is worth a reminder, of course, bearing in mind we are in, pretty good times in terms of this deal. It's early days. In fact, it's merely hours. However, things are looking positive, and they haven't looked this way for a long, long time. Let's have a listen then to Donald Trump speaking on the whole issue on Fox News yesterday.
In a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars. It's never happened before. There's never been anything like that. I'm very honored to have done it. It's too bad that I had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them.
That, of course, was on Fox News. That wasn't Fox News. That was the United Nations, Oscar, as I'm sure you were ahead of me on that one, unless Fox News have changed their set. But nonetheless, there it is. I mean, his claims of 7 wars are a bit iffy, but let's deal with the one that's being sorted at the moment. He's got to get a house point or 2 for what's happened, Oscar.
Yeah, he has, and obviously with this conflict, there is no resting on any laurels whatsoever. There is, I am as just a watcher, almost borderline paranoid at this point that there'll be an 11th hour disruption or complication here. But as we sit here now, what Donald Trump, and I think you're right, Ian, has ultimately played a huge part in securing is absolutely should be completely across the political spectrum welcomed. And it will obviously really grate and it will anger the Jeremy Corbyns of this world that and those that are politically aligned with him, that it is someone like Donald Trump who has got it done. And it's that uncomfortable thing that when people view politics like football teams and the opposing team, the opposing politics to yourself is always wrong, is always the enemy, is always hateful, is always this, is always that. Like you cannot shake that. You can never be truly objective, and you can't view that, yes, you might not like X and Y about Donald Trump and his style, or even some of his domestic policies, or, as you said, some of the allegations that are floated around him. You can despise all that stuff, but you cannot deny that the world, even in his first time as president, the world is a safer place with Donald Trump as president. He has proved that time and time again, and this is the latest iteration of that. Yeah. When it's that robust, I think it's that kind of almost primal kind of deal-making, robust diplomacy that only he can do, it seems. It's kind of strange, isn't it? Because I don't think anybody can fully, if you asked a load of politics students to write 500 words to kind of encapsulate what you and I are now discussing, I think it'd be quite hard to do, to sort of put it in sentences as to what it is that a guy with so many dimensions to his personality, and Lord knows how many to his history and his backstory, but simultaneously is able to front up a peace deal like this. He's a shark, and when the challenge of securing peace in the world as he would see it. And he has that huge bullish ego. He will lean into, I am the person, I can save, I am the one who can bring peace to the world. It is only me. And you get a sense that like the challenge of that, he has gone after like a great white shark, and he has been brutal in pursuing, each sides of the negotiation, like grabbing them by the scruff of the neck and kind of bashing their heads together time and time again in order to get this done. And he has respect. People didn't respect Joe Biden. People actually don't tend to respect a weak America. Yeah. It is, and people might not like to hear it because it's not kumbaya and it's not all we're linking arms and isn't it all lovely and Joe Biden's got on the stage or Obama's done a lovely speech about, peace. That doesn't actually achieve peace. It is that tough America that people believe will be strong, truly believe will be strong. And actually, and this is what's unique to Donald Trump in a way that maybe, the Bush administration didn't even have, he has an unpredictability. And that's quite unnerving for people. And again, I think that's something that when he is bashing heads together and he's got, side X and side Y, Donald Trump's unpredictability at times makes them fall into line a little bit as well. Yeah. And just lastly on this, and this might be entirely wishful thinking, but, again, as we sit here now, I think if he does secure this peace deal, and it is, relatively, in terms of long lasting, I guess, and again, that's subjective, but this peace deal, I think, really helps with Ukraine, Russia. I think it builds momentum now. And I think it will get, it will G Trump up even more, as you said, going for the double.
100%.
And I think we could get to a place where Russia, Putin in particular, as the aggressor, I think we can get. I think this really, really helps with that, which would just be, as you said, any critics of Trump, would really have to look long and hard in the mirror about what they truly want to achieve if they can't commend someone for this.
Indeed. We'll take more calls and questions on that. Should Trump have won the Nobel Peace Prize? It's a notional question because, of course, he couldn't have technically won it because it was out of the time thing, so he might win the next year's one. Should he win it? Should Trump win the next Nobel Peace Prize for this? Oscar Reddrop is with us. Let's go to this story, Oscar. No surprise on this. Labour's one in, one out scheme has seen just 26 migrants sent back to France. And in that time, over 10,000, not 10, not 100, 10,000 have arrived in Britain at the same time we've deported 26. This is a joke.
It's a complete joke. And isn't it in real contrast with the previous story we were just talking about, where we have, kind of that, as I said, that kind of brute force decisiveness, like going after something. Here's the objective. I'm a leader and I'm going to go after it almost at all costs because it is so integral and so important to my ambitions as leader. And then you look at a story like this where, Keir Starmer and the Labour government have time and time again kind of dithered and, been so hesitant around the tinkering around the edges. This policy, and I would say particularly from a communications, I hate that phrase in a way because it doesn't talk about the issues, but from an optics, I hate that word even more, perspective, it would have been better if they'd never done this one in, one out policy. 10 returns, and I know this sounds odd, but 10 returns back to France is almost worse optically than none.
The no returns,
because the no returns. We will consistently see these headlines, these stories of thousands coming in at record speed and record levels, and 15 returned, 10 returned. It's a joke. It's embarrassing. He has senior people in the Labour Party really putting downward pressure on him as well in the Lords. Yeah. So it isn't just, the right wing, and it's not at all. He's got it internally now. I always
wondered, Oscar, sorry, just to interject for a second.
Of course.
When you were talking about 10 is worse than none. To go back to the last Tory administration, Rishi Sunak in China, he called an election. He could have called an election much later in the year, by which time Rwanda would have been up and running, of course. Now, I wonder whether Rishi was afraid of the same optics problem, that having a plane take off with 37 migrants in it is kind of worse than not having it. But if one doesn't take off at all, he can go, oh, I've been scuppered by the lawyers. But if broadcasters and the media start talking about how 37 people have been ejected, that's going to look terrible. And of course, had he called a later election, we would have begun to see Rwanda enacted. And maybe that's why he swerved it and went early. I don't know. You know more about that world than me.
I think the key difference, I mean, if I'm to go back to 2024, I think Rishi ultimately called the election. It's very depressing to say, because I think the Conservative Party just ran out of, and I think it was a marathon runner, just it's hit the wall and couldn't go on anymore. I think it really came down to that. On Rwanda, the key difference, though, is, ultimately, in terms of a deterrent, if you're coming from France anyway, just being told you might get taken back, you probably won't, by the way, is hugely different as a deterrent and less effective than you're going to get put on a plane and sent to Rwanda on the other side of the world, actually.
That's a good point.
So I think there's a real difference there. I thought it was really good to see the Tories pledge that every single MP at the next election will have to sign up to the Tory party, will have to sign up to that pledge of leaving the ECHR. That's what it's going to take. Labour will not do it. They will not do it. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. And it really is.
It's dreadful. And now we're seeing the manifestation of that dreadfulness when we can release figures like that 26 people are sent back at the same time that 10,000 arrived. Oscar.